The stars looked different from the observation deck of the horizon. Olivia Martinez pressed her hand against the cold glass and took a deep breath. 6 months into their mission to study the edge of the Kuiper Belt, and she still couldn't get used to the view. As the ship's lead scientist, she had access to this quiet spot where she could think and watch the universe unfold before her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said Captain Frank Wilson, stepping onto the deck. His weathered face looked tired after the long shift. Olivia nodded. "The energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever is out there, we're getting closer." Frank looked worried. The military liaisons are getting nervous. They don't like unknowns. "Science is all about unknowns," Olivia said with a small laugh. She tucked her brown hair behind her ear and checked her tablet again. The numbers didn't make sense. Energy signatures that powerful shouldn't exist naturally at the edge of the solar system. Alarms blared suddenly, cutting through their conversation. Red emergency lights flashed across the deck. "Captain, to the bridge." The voice over the intercom sounded scared. Frank was already moving. "Stay here," he ordered. Olivia ignored him and followed close behind. When they reached the bridge, chaos greeted them. The crew moved frantically between stations. On the main screen, a massive ship appeared unlike anything humans had ever built. It was gray and smooth, with strange bulges and no visible windows. "It just appeared, sir," said Alan Rogers, the young navigation officer. "No warning." "Our sensors didn't pick it up until it was right on top of us." "Defensive positions," Frank ordered. "Try to hail them." Communications Officer Beth Young shook her head. "We've been trying. No response on any frequency." Olivia stepped forward, studying the ship on the screen. "The energy signature matches our readings. That's what we've been tracking." A strange vibration shook the horizon. The lights flickered. "They've locked onto us with some kind of beam," Alan reported, his voice shaking. "We've lost engine power." "Life support system still working?" Frank turned to Olivia. "Any ideas?" "You're the scientist." Before she could answer, the main screen changed. A face appeared. At least they thought it was a face. Gray skin stretched over a pointed skull. 4 black eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, blinked independently of each other. Where a mouth should be, there was only a small opening that pulsed as sounds emerged. The translator systems worked to decode the strange noises. After a moment, words formed. "Humans, we are the Vrax Dominion. Your vessel has been claimed. Resistance is unnecessary." Frank stepped forward. "This is Captain Frank Wilson of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We are on a peaceful scientific mission. We mean no harm." The alien face showed no reaction. "Your purpose is irrelevant. The study begins now." The screen went dark. Moments later, a strange mist filled the bridge. Olivia tried to hold her breath, but it was too late. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was the crew falling around her. Olivia woke up in a small white room. The walls glowed softly. She sat up quickly, checking herself for injuries. She still wore her blue science uniform, but her equipment was gone. A section of the wall became transparent. 3 of the gray aliens stood watching her. Their forearms hung at different lengths from their torsos. They wore no clothes, but their skin seemed to change color slightly as they moved. "Where is my crew?" Olivia asked, standing to face them. "One stepped closer to the clear wall. The others have been processed and returned to your planet. A demonstration of our abilities. Why keep me? You are the knowledge keeper, the one who studies. We also study. We will learn from each other." Olivia crossed her arms. "I won't help you harm Earth." The alien made a clicking sound that the translator in the room converted to words. "Harm is inefficient. Understanding is our goal. 12 systems have joined." The Dominion threw understanding. "You mean 12 systems have surrendered to you," Olivia said. "Correct, after they understood their place." The wall became solid again, leaving Olivia alone. She examined the room carefully. A bed, a small area for washing, and a section of the floor that opened to provide food. Nothing else. No windows, no tools. Nothing to work with. Days passed. Olivia lost track of time. The aliens would appear randomly, watching her, sometimes asking questions about human biology or behavior. She answered carefully, giving scientific facts but nothing that could be used against Earth. In her third week of captivity, a different alien appeared. This one had marking on its skin that looked like symbols. "I am Z. Catral, Chief Scientist of the Vrax Dominion," it said. "Your species interests us. You are physically weak compared to other life forms we have studied, yet you show unusual mental patterns." Olivia stood tall. "What do you want from me?" "We want to understand how long a human can maintain mental stability in isolation. Other species break quickly when cut off from their kind. Their will to live fades, they become compliant." "So I'm your lab rat," Olivia said, feeling anger rise in her chest. "Your Earth rodents are actually quite resilient in isolation experiments." Skral noted. "We hope you will be as interesting." The alien explained the terms of her captivity. She would be provided with everything needed to survive physically. She would have no contact with other humans, no books, no materials to write with, nothing to occupy her mind except her own thoughts. "How long do you plan to keep me here?" she asked. "Until you break," Zcatral answered simply. "Or until you prove our methods ineffective. Both outcomes provide valuable data." Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of the Horizon's encounter had caused worldwide panic. Most of the crew had been found in escape pods near Mars, unconscious but alive. When they woke, they told the story of the alien ship and the strange beings who had taken them prisoner. Only one crew member remained missing. Dr. Olivia Martinez. Lieutenant Kai Voss stood before the United Earth Defense Council, his uniform perfectly pressed, despite having been awake for 3 days straight. "We need to mount a rescue mission," he insisted. Dr. Martinez is the leading expert on xenobiology. "If these aliens are studying her, they're also learning about us." General Susan Adams shook her head. "With what ships, Lieutenant?" "You saw what these aliens did to the Horizon. They shut it down without firing a shot. We need to prepare our defenses, not rush into space after one scientist." "She's not just one scientist," Kai argued. "She's the best we have. And she's alone out there." Back on the Vrax station, Olivia sat in the center of her cell. She had been there for exactly 1 month, according to her own careful tracking of meals and sleep cycles. The aliens watched her constantly, expecting her to show signs of distress. Instead, she smiled. Every day she looked directly at the wall where she knew they were watching, and she smiled. It was a small act of defiance, but it was hers. They could take away her freedom, her work, her contact with other humans. But they couldn't take her spirit. What she didn't know was how much that simple human expression confused and disturbed the Vrax. They had no concept of smiling in their culture. To them, it was an unexplainable facial contortion that conveyed no useful information. And yet, day after day, she did it. The human smiled into the void of her captivity, a mystery the Vrax could not solve. 6 months passed in Olivia's transparent prison. The Vrax watched her every move with their 4 black eyes. They recorded how she slept, how she ate, how she exercised in the small space. Most of all, they noted her daily ritual of smiling at the observation wall. "The human continues to display the facial anomaly," reported Tikalor, a junior scientist assigned to monitor Olivia. "It occurs at regular intervals, regardless of environmental changes." Chief Scientist Z. Catral studied the footage with growing frustration. "Increase the isolation protocols. Make the walls opaque for 3 days, then transparent for 1. Disrupt her sleep cycle with light variations." Olivia noticed the changes immediately. Her cell would go completely dark without warning. Then bright light would flood in, making it impossible to sleep. Sometimes the walls turned clear and she could see the aliens watching her. Other times she sat in darkness for days with no way to know if anyone was there. She kept track of time by counting her heartbeats. 60 seconds, 1 minute, 60 minutes, 1 hour. 24 hours, 1 day. She counted and counted, creating her own clock inside her head. When the darkness became too much, she closed her eyes and pictured the labs back on Earth. She mentally walked through every experiment she had ever conducted. She recited the periodic table. She calculated complex equations in her mind, and when the walls turned clear again, she smiled at her watchers. Always, she smiled. On Earth, Lieutenant Kaivos refused to give up on finding Olivia. He had been promoted to captain after leading several missions to scan the outer solar system for signs of the alien vessel. The Vrax ship left energy traces that don't match any known propulsion system, he explained to Dr. Ilan Ravi, the chief synaptologist assigned to the case. They sat in a small office at United Earth Defense Headquarters, surrounded by maps and data readouts. Ilan frowned at the information. These beings clearly have technology far beyond ours. But what worries me more is their psychological tactics. What do you mean? Kai asked. The way they returned the crew but kept Dr. Martinez, it's a classic dominance display. They're showing us they can take what they want and return what they don't need. Ilan pointed to reports from the returned crew members. And based on the crew's accounts, I believe they're using isolation as a method of psychological warfare. Kai leaned forward. How so? Throughout human history, isolation has been used to break people. Without social contact, without stimulation, the human mind starts to deteriorate. Most people experience severe psychological effects after just a few weeks in true isolation. Olivia has been gone for 6 months, Kai said quietly. Ilan nodded grimly. If the Vrax are isolation specialists, they may be studying how to break humans down before attempting larger-scale contact or conquest. Dr. Martinez is essentially a test case. Kai stood up and paced the room. We need to find her. Not just for her sake, but for Earth's. If these aliens are planning something bigger, I agree, said Ilan. And there's one more thing. We need to understand why they chose her specifically. What makes a xenobiologist valuable to them? Back on the Vrax station, a meeting of the Scientific Council was underway. 7 senior Vrax gathered around a circular table, their gray skin changing shade as they communicated both verbally and through color patterns. The human subject has maintained psychological stability far longer than predicted, said Zcatril. Previous species showed significant deterioration by this stage. Another Vrax, the station commander, flashed red spots across its skin in anger. This delays our assessment of Earth's suitability for integration into the Dominion. If one human can resist our methods, others may as well. We must escalate the experiment, suggested a third Vrax. Introduce sensory manipulation compounds into her environment. The chemicals that affected the Centauri being so effectively, Zcatril agreed, begin with low dosages. We want to observe the breakdown process, not simply cause it. Tikalor, who had been silently observing, spoke up hesitantly. The facial anomaly seems to be deliberate, not a sign of deterioration. Perhaps it has meaning we don't understand. The station commander turned all 4 eyes toward the junior scientist. Explain. The human performs this action precisely when she knows she is being observed. It appears to be a form of communication, possibly even a challenge. The commander's skin darkened. Tikalor, you spend too much time watching this single subject. Your perspective may be compromised. Remember that understanding leads to control. We do not seek to communicate with test subjects. In her cell, Olivia felt the air change slightly. A sweet smell filled the room. At first it was pleasant, but soon her vision began to blur. The walls of her cell seemed to bend and warp. She saw shapes moving in impossible ways. Hallucinogens, she whispered to herself, recognizing what was happening. Her scientific training helped her understand even as her mind began to distort reality. They're drugging me. The floor beneath her feet seemed to tilt. She fell to her knees, trying to focus on something solid. The Vrax watched through the transparent wall. Recording her reactions, Olivia closed her eyes tightly and focused on her breathing. In and out, slow and steady. She had experimented with mind-altering compounds during her university days, researching their effects on perception. She knew the key was to remember that what she experienced wasn't real. My name is Olivia Martinez, she said aloud, her voice echoing strangely in her ears. I am a scientist from Earth. This will pass. For hours she wrote out the hallucinations. Strange creatures crawled along the walls. Voices whispered from nowhere. Colors swirled across her vision. But she kept repeating her mantra, holding on to her sense of self, when the drugs finally wore off. The wall before her was transparent again. 3 Vracs stood watching, including Z. Catril and T. Kaler. Olivia, exhausted and shaky, forced herself to stand. She walked directly to the wall, looked into their alien eyes, and smiled. It took all her strength, but her smile was as bright as ever. T. Kaler moved closer to the wall, studying her face with obvious curiosity. The junior scientist's skin rippled with blue patterns that the others couldn't see, a sign of growing fascination. That Vrax culture strictly forbade when dealing with test subjects? Why do you perform this facial action? Tikalor asked through the translation system. It was the first direct question any Vrax had asked her in months. Olivia considered ignoring it, but something in the alien's posture suggested genuine curiosity, rather than clinical observation. It's called a smile, she said simply. Humans do it when we're happy or when we want to show strength. Sometimes we do it to hide pain. Right now, I'm doing it to show you that I'm still here. Still me, still human. T-Calor's skin rippled with more blue patterns. Does it serve a biological function? It serves a human function, Olivia replied. And that's something your tests will never understand. Z. Catril pulled Kaler away from the wall, and the observation panel went opaque again. But in that brief exchange, something had changed. For the first time, Olivia had spoken directly to her captors as people rather than scientists, and one of them, at least, seemed to be listening. 1 year had passed since Olivia's capture. The Vrax continued their experiments, but something unexpected was happening. Tikalor, the junior scientist, had begun to watch Olivia with growing interest that went beyond the official study. When no other Vrax were present, T-Kaler would sometimes stand alone at the observation wall. Olivia noticed that this particular alien's skin patterns were different, more blue ripples, fewer harsh red spots. She began to recognize T-Kaler as an individual, distinct from the others. One day, Olivia woke to find something new in her cell, a small metal object with an unusual texture. It wasn't a tool or weapon, just a simple piece of alien material that caught the light in strange ways. She picked it up carefully, turning it over in her hands, wondering if it was some new test, but no one came to observe her reaction or take the object away. Looking toward the observation wall, she saw only Tikalor watching, skin rippling with blue patterns. Olivia held up the object and smiled. Tikalor's skin flashed briefly with yellow, a color she had never seen on any Vrax before. On Earth, Captain Kai Voss met with a new ally. The United Earth Defense had intercepted a transmission from a small faction of Vrax who disagreed with the Dominion's expansion policies. They called themselves the Free Vrax Movement. "This is our contact," said Nancy Klein, the cultural anthropologist, who had joined Kai's search team. She pointed to the screen where a Vrax with distinctive marking patterns waited. "I am Mzvir," the alien said through a translator. "We have been monitoring your search for the human scientist." Kai leaned forward eagerly. "Do you know where she is?" "She is being held at the Central Research Station in the Tau Ceti system. She is part of an isolation study that the Dominion uses to assess species before conquest." Nancy looked troubled. "Is she still alive? It's been over a year?" Mexvir's skin flickered with what they had learned with surprise. "She is not only alive, but has become what our scientists call an anomaly case. Most subjects break within months. The human has not." Hope surged through Kai. "We need to rescue her." "Direct rescue would fail," Mexvir warned. "The station defenses are too strong. But there may be another way. Our movement has members inside the research team. One scientist in particular has shown unusual interest in the human." "What do you mean?" asked Nancy. "Tikalor has begun to question the ethics of the isolation protocol. This is unprecedented in Vrax science. Your human has somehow affected this scientist's thinking." Back on the station, Chief Scientist Z. Catril had called to Kaler for a private meeting. Your behavior concerning the human subject is troubling, Zcatril said, skin flashing with warning reds. You observe her outside of assigned periods. You ask questions that go beyond our research parameters. T-Color's skin remained calm, showing only light purple, the Vrax's color of thought. I am studying an unexpected aspect of human psychology. The facial expression she calls a smile seems to serve as both a defense mechanism and a communication tool. It may explain why isolation has not affected her as predicted. You have been contaminated by extended contact, Zcatril accused. The Dominion leadership is coming to evaluate our progress in 3 days. They expect results, a broken subject, or a new methodology. I am removing you from the observation team until after their visit. T-Color left the meeting troubled. That night, when the station was in low activity cycle, the junior scientist returned to Olivia's cell. The control panel glowed under T-Color's four-fingered hand as an unauthorized communication channel opened. Human, Olivia. The translated voice came through a small speaker in her cell. Olivia sat up quickly. This was new direct communication, rather than observation. Who is this? She asked cautiously. I am T-Kaler, the scientist who studies your smile. Olivia moved closer to the wall. Why are you talking to me now? The Dominion leaders come soon. They will see you have not broken. They will order new methods, harsher ones. T-Color's voice wavered slightly. This is wrong. The purpose of science is understanding, not breaking. You're risking a lot by telling me this, Olivia said. Yes, but your smile has made me question many things. The other subjects we studied, they stopped trying. Their eyes became empty. You keep looking back at us, challenging us. It is ... what we expected. For the first time in a year, Olivia felt a spark of hope. T-Color on Earth. We have a saying, the human spirit can't be broken if it refuses to break. This concept does not exist in Vrax's culture. We believe all beings can be broken given the right pressure. T-Color paused. But you make me question this belief. The communication ended abruptly as another scientist entered the observation area. But something had changed. Olivia now had an ally, or at least someone who was beginning to doubt the Vrax methods. Meanwhile, on a ship bound for the Tau Ceti system, Kai, Nancy, and linguistic expert Dr. Paul Weber prepared for a dangerous mission. They had been chosen to make first official contact with the Vrax Dominion, ostensibly to discuss peaceful relations between the species. The Vrax agreed too easily to this meeting, Paul said, studying the translation programs they had developed. They must have their own agenda. Nancy nodded. According to Enzir, they're likely using Olivia's case to determine if humans can be conquered through psychological means rather than direct force. This meeting is as much an assessment of us as we are of them. Kai checked the small device. Hidden in his uniform pocket, a quantum tracker that could lock onto Olivia's DNA signature if they got close enough to the station. Then we'll have to convince them we're not worth the trouble. Back on the station, Olivia paced her cell. The conversation with T-Color had given her new energy and purpose. If one Vrax could question their methods, perhaps others could too. She needed to find a way to communicate more effectively. Looking around her bare cell, she had an idea. The small metal object T-Color had left her weeks ago, she could use it. When the floor panel opened to deliver her food, she quickly scratched. A simple drawing on the smooth white wall, a crude picture of a Vrax and a human standing side by side. The next day, she found her drawing had been removed. But beside her food tray was a small crystalline object that refracted light into beautiful rainbow patterns. She held it up to the light, watching as colors danced across the walls of her cell. When T-Color appeared at the observation wall, Olivia picked up the crystal and carefully directed a beam of colored light toward the wall. She moved it in a pattern. 3 flashes, pause. 3 flashes, a simple code that any scientist would recognize as deliberate communication. T-Color watched intently. After a moment, the lights in Olivia's cell flashed in the same pattern 3 times, pause, 3 times. Olivia smiled her brightest smile yet. It wasn't much, but it was the beginning of true communication. If she could establish a connection with just one Vrax, maybe she could change how they saw humans not as test subjects, but as equals worthy of respect. What she didn't know was that Z. Catril had been watching this exchange from another observation point. The chief scientist's skin burned with angry red patterns. This was no longer a simple case of scientific curiosity. Tikalor was actively communicating with the test subject, a serious violation of Vrax protocol. The Dominion leaders would arrive tomorrow, expecting to see a broken human or a new, more effective braking method. Instead, they would find a human who had somehow converted one of their scientists into an ally. Skrell needed to act quickly to salvage the experiment, and to protect the Vrax way of life from this dangerous human influence. The day of the Dominion leaders' visit arrived. The research station hummed with nervous energy as Vrax scientists prepared their reports and cleaned their labs. Chief Scientist Z. Catril had ordered Tikalor to stay away from Olivia's cell, assigning the junior scientist to a different section of the station. Olivia sensed the change in routine. No one had observed her for almost 24 hours, the longest she had been left alone since her capture. She used the time to practice the simple sign language she had been developing with Tikalor. Over the past few weeks, they had created a basic system of hand gestures to communicate when they couldn't use light signals or voice. Suddenly, her cell walls became fully transparent on all sides. For the first time, she could see beyond her small prison. She was in a large circular room with other cells arranged like spokes on a wheel. Most were empty, but in two of them she glimpsed other beings, aliens she had never seen before, curled up in corners, their eyes vacant. 5 Vrax entered the central area. 4 wore elaborate skin markings that Olivia had never seen before, symbols of authority, she guessed. The 5th was Z. Catril, walking slightly behind the others with head bowed respectfully. "This is the human subject," Z. Catril said, gesturing toward Olivia. "As you can see, she has maintained unusual psychological resilience despite 18 months of standard isolation protocol." The largest Vrax, with complex gold patterns across its gray skin, stepped closer to Olivia's cell. "This is the one causing so much discussion among our scientists. She looks ordinary." "The physical form is unremarkable," agreed Z. Catril. "But her mental patterns defy our models. We have escalated to chemical interventions, sleep disruption, and sensory manipulation. Yet she persists in displaying stable behavior." Olivia stood tall, facing the group. She could understand their words. Through the translation system that had been active in her cell since the beginning, she looked directly at the gold-patterned leader and smiled her brightest smile. The leader's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "What is this facial contortion? A sign of distress?" "They call it a smile," explained Z. Catril. "It appears to be a social display with multiple meanings. This subject uses it as a form of resistance." Another leader, with silver patterns, moved closer. "Fascinating. In all our studies, we have never encountered a species that responds to isolation with defiance rather than surrender." Olivia spoke up, surprising the gathered Vrax. "That's because you don't understand what makes humans different." The gold-patterned leader turned all 4 eyes toward her. "Explain." "Humans are social beings, yes, we need connection. But we also have rich inner lives. Even alone, I'm not truly isolated because I carry my world inside me, memories, knowledge, imagination." Olivia tapped her head. "You can lock up my body, but my mind remains free." The Vrax leaders conferred among themselves, their skin flashing with rapid color changes that the translation system couldn't interpret. Finally, the gold-patterned leader addressed Z. Catril. "This case requires special measures. Prepare the deep probe. We must understand how this resistance functions if we are to effectively integrate humans into the Dominion." Z. Catril's skin flickered with concern. "The deep probe has never been used on this species. The risk of permanent damage is—" "Acceptable," interrupted the leader. "We face the human delegation tomorrow. We must know their weaknesses before negotiations begin." At the mention of a human delegation, Olivia felt her heart race. Other humans were coming here? Could it be a rescue mission? Across the station, Tikalor had accessed the security feeds to watch the leader's inspection. Hearing their plans for Olivia, the junior scientist made a decision that would change everything. Tikalor slipped away from the assigned post and headed toward the communication center. Meanwhile, the Earthship carrying Kai, Nancy, and Paul had entered the Tau Ceti system. They were escorted by two smaller Vrax vessels that monitored their approach to the massive research station. "We're getting close," Kai said, checking the quantum tracker in his pocket. It had begun to pulse faintly, indicating Olivia's DNA signature was within range. "The signal is weak, but definite. She's on that station." Nancy looked nervous as she reviewed her cultural notes. "Remember, the Vrax respect strength and dislike emotional displays. We need to be firm but not aggressive." Paul adjusted the translation device he had developed. "Their language relies heavily on color patterns in their skin as well as words. I've programmed this to capture some of those nuances, but we'll miss a lot of the subtleties." Their ship docked at the station, and they were led through sterile gray corridors to a meeting room. The walls were curved, and the chairs designed for beings with different body structures than humans. 3 Vrax leaders entered the ones with gold, silver, and bronze skin patterns. They arranged themselves across from the human delegation. "We welcome you to the Central Research Station," said the gold-patterned leader. "I am High Commander Vicator of the Vrax Dominion. We are pleased that humans have chosen to initiate formal contact." Kai stepped forward. "I am Captain Kai Voss of the United Earth Defense. We come seeking peaceful exchange between our species." He paused, then added carefully, "And the return of our scientist, Dr. Olivia Martinez, who has been in your custody for 18 months. The Vrax leaders showed no reaction that the humans could detect. "Your scientist has been participating in a cultural exchange program," said Vicator smoothly. "Her insights have been valuable." "We would like to see her," Nancy said firmly. "That can be arranged," replied Vicator. "But first we must discuss the terms of our ongoing relationship. The Vrax Dominion offers protection and technological advancement to species that join our collective." Paul leaned forward. "By join, you mean submit to Vrax authority?" The bronze-patterned leader's skin flashed with red spots. "We prefer to call it integration. 12 systems have benefited from our guidance. And if we decline?" asked Kai. "That would be unfortunate," said Vicator. "Isolated species rarely thrive in this sector of space." As the tense conversation continued, none of them noticed the message being transmitted from the station to the Earthship. Tikilor had accessed the communication system and sent a detailed map of the station, marking Olivia's location and the security protocols. The message was signed, "From those who seek understanding, not domination." In her cell, Olivia watched as technicians prepared equipment outside. The deep probe appeared to be a helmet-like device with countless thin wires extending from it. She had no doubt it would be painful, possibly damaging. But now she knew humans were on the station, maybe even people who knew her. She had to stay strong just a little longer. A soft chime sounded in her cell, and a hidden panel slid open in the floor, one she had never seen before. Inside was a small communication device with a blinking light and a message in English. "Prepare for transfer. Friends are here. Keep smiling." Olivia quickly hid the device as Z. Catril approached her cell with 2 assistants. The chief scientist's skin showed conflicted patterns duty mingled with doubt. "The Dominion leaders have ordered a final procedure," Skral announced. "You will be moved to the examination chamber." As the transparent wall of her cell slid open for the first time in 18 months, Olivia stepped forward with her head held high. Whatever happened next, she would face it as she had faced everything in her captivity, with unwavering human resilience and a smile that had begun to change at least one Vrax's understanding of what it meant to be human. Olivia walked between 2 Vrax guards, her legs shaky after so long in her small cell. The corridors of the station stretched before her like a maze of gray metal. She memorized each turn, each doorway. Building a mental map for the first time. In the diplomatic meeting room, tensions were rising. Captain Kai Voss had firmly rejected the Vrax offer of protection. "Humans prefer to make their own way in the universe," Kai said. We seek friendly relations with all species, but we will not surrender our independence. High Commander Vcator S. Skin flashed with irritation. Your species is young and vulnerable. The galaxy contains threats you cannot imagine. Perhaps, Nancy said, but forcing protection on someone who doesn't want it isn't protection at all. It's control? A junior Vrax entered the room and whispered something to Vcator. The High Commander's skin pulsed with surprise, then anger. Excuse me, Vcator said to the humans. A matter requires my attention. We will continue this discussion. Shortly, the Vrax leaders left the room. As soon as they were alone, Paul pulled out a small device. The message from our mysterious friend inside the station included security codes. I think I can access their system. Nancy looked at the door nervously. Hurry, they won't be gone long. Paul's fingers flew over the device. I'm in. Accessing. Station layout and dar. Olivia is being moved from the observation wing to something called the Deep Analysis Chamber. It's not far from here. Kai checked his weapon discreetly. We need a distraction. On the other side of the station, Olivia arrived at a large circular room filled with strange equipment. In the center stood a chair with restraints and the helmet-like device she had. Seen earlier, Zcatril was already there, preparing the machinery. The deep probe will scan your neural pathways and map your thought processes. It has never been used on a human before. Will it hurt? Olivia asked, eyeing the sharp connectors on the helmet. Pain is not the primary purpose, but it is an unavoidable side effect, Zcatril admitted. The procedure may also cause memory loss or personality changes. Olivia felt fear rising in her chest, but pushed it down. So, after 3 years of failing to break me, you'll just damage my brain instead? Skral's skin showed conflicted patterns. This is not my decision. The Dominion leaders require answers. And you always follow orders, no matter what your own research tells you. Olivia challenged. Before Zcatril could respond, the door slid. Open. TKLOR rushed in, skin flashing with urgent blue patterns. The human delegation has escaped their meeting room, TKLOR reported. Security has detected unauthorized access to our systems. Zcatril turned to the guards. Secure this room. No one enters or leaves until the situation is resolved. To TKLOR, the chief scientist added, Why are you here? You were removed from this project. I came to warn you, TKLOR said, moving closer to Olivia. There is more happening than you know. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Emergency. Lights flashed red and a computerized voice announced, Warning. Environmental systems compromised in sectors 3 through 7. All personnel evacuate to secure areas. The guards looked to Zcatril for instructions. The chief scientist hesitated, then ordered, Go investigate, report back immediately. As the guards left, TKLOR moved to a control panel and quickly entered a series of commands. The doors locked with a heavy thud. What are you doing? Skral demanded. What our science should have taught us long ago, TKLOR replied. Understanding cannot come from breaking another being. It must come from connection. Olivia felt the small communication device in her pocket vibrate. She pulled it out to see a message. Northeast corridor clear? Head there now, TKLOR turned to Olivia. Your people have created a diversion? We must go now, Zcatril stepped between them. This is treason against the Dominion. The human is a research subject, not a person to be freed. That's where you're wrong, TKLOR said. I have studied her for 3 years, watched her maintain. Her spirit, her identity, her smile even in complete isolation. She has taught me more about resilience and individuality than all our previous studies combined. You've been contaminated by extended contact, Zcatril accused. The human has influenced your thinking. Yes, TKLOR agreed simply. And that is what true understanding looks like. The doors suddenly burst open. Captain Kai Voss stood there with Nancy and Paul behind him. Kai's eyes found Olivia immediately. Olivia, he called. Are you all right? Seeing other humans for the first time. In 3 years, Olivia felt tears well in her eyes. Kai, how did you find me? We had help, he said, looking at TKLOR. Zcatril backed toward an alarm panel. This violation will not stand. The Dominion will listen, came a new voice. High Commander V. Cater entered with other leaders, their skin patterns showing complex emotions the humans couldn't read. Victor looked at the scene before him, the deep probe machine, the escaped human, the rebellious scientist, and the human rescue team. Explain this, Z. Catrell. Before the chief scientist could speak, Ticulor stepped forward. The isolation experiment has failed, Commander. Not because the human broke, but because our methodology was flawed from the beginning. The data shows, Strahl began. The data shows that, after 3 years, this human has not only maintained her psychological integrity, but has influenced our own scientists, interrupted V. Cater. This is unprecedented. Olivia stepped forward, standing beside Ticulor. Your methods don't work on humans because you don't understand what makes us strong. It's not just our connections to others, it's our ability to find meaning even in suffering, to maintain hope in darkness, to smile in the face of fear. To everyone's surprise, she reached out and took Ticulor's hand in hers, the first physical contact between their species. And our greatest strength is that we can teach others to do the same. The room fell silent. The Vrax leader's skin rippled, with rapid color changes as they communicated silently among themselves. Finally, V. Cater spoke. For 12 systems and countless species, our methodology has proven effective. Yet here stands one human who has not broken after 3 years of our most rigorous protocols. The High Commander turned to the other leaders. Perhaps we have been approaching expansion incorrectly. What are you saying? Asked Z. Catrell, skin pale with shock. I am saying that a species that cannot be broken through isolation may have more to teach us than we have to teach them. V. Cater turned to Kai. Captain Voss, it seems we must reconsider our approach to Earth. Kai stepped forward. We're willing to establish peaceful relations, but as equals, not as subjects, a new type of relationship, V. Cater mused. This requires further discussion. In the days that followed, the first real diplomatic talks between humans and the Vrax began. The isolation experiments were ended, and the few remaining subjects from other species were released. Olivia, though offered immediate transport back to Earth, chose to stay as an official human representative on her last day on the station. Before departing for Earth to brief the United Earth Defense on the new alliance, she visited her old cell one last time. Ticulor accompanied her. Why did you help me? She asked the Vrax scientist who had become her unlikely friend. Ticulor's skin showed the now familiar blue ripples of thoughtfulness. Your smile. At first, I did not understand it. In Vrax culture, we hide our feelings, seeing them as weakness. But day after day, you smiled at us, not from weakness, but from strength. A smile can mean many things, Olivia said. Happiness. Yes, but also defiance, courage, hope. It changed how I saw you, how I saw myself. Ticulor's face moved in an awkward, unpracticed way, the corners of the small mouth turning upward in a primitive attempt at a human smile. Olivia felt tears in her eyes as she smiled back. In that moment, she knew that her 3 years of isolation had not been in vain. Her refusal to break had not only saved her own spirit, but had begun to change an entire civilization. The Vrax had sought to defeat humanity by breaking one human, but instead, one human smile had defeated their most fundamental assumptions about strength and connection, and that was a victory greater than any war could have won.